You are welcome. I welcome you to this channel, a prophetic ministry dedicated to awakening the chosen of God, the elect of God, because the Messiah is coming. We are focusing on the chosen of God, those who are the chosen of God. Why is it that there's a lot of conflict about the identity of the chosen of God? My conclusion is that you need to be God-centered. It is not enough to call yourself the chosen of God. It is important to be accounted worthy so that the Lord himself will know that you are his chosen and you will be qualified to be in his presence. So the chosen of God, when we look at the Bible and when we say the chosen of God, how do we interpret the chosen of God? We look at it in two ways. The Bible is very clear in the Old Testament. The God of the universe chose a particular nation, called them a peculiar nation, and that is Israel. And so in the Bible, Israel is the chosen of God. And if you go into the New Testament, based upon the writings of Paul, it's clear that salvation is for both the Israelites and the Gentiles who are grafted in, and they will become the elect of God or the chosen of God. The scripture is very clear that Yahweh has not forsaken the chosen of God. And there are so many scriptures that we can use to back it. And Paul himself said it, has God forsaken Israel? And Paul said, no, God forbid. The prophet Jeremiah in Jeremiah 31:31 talks about a new covenant, and the covenant that Elohim will give to the Israelites, a new covenant better than the old covenant. Jeremiah 31:31. And when we say the chosen of God are the Hebrew Israelites, we need to look at the context and the prophecies that support that claim. And the prophecies are a lot, from Jeremiah, Isaiah, and Zechariah. And we know that the chosen of God disobeyed God, and so God scattered them to the four corners of the earth. And when you look at Deuteronomy 28, verse 45 to 46, it's very clear that what happened to the chosen of God served as a wonder and as a sign. And so all the curses in Deuteronomy 28, why did it fall to the chosen of God? The curses in Deuteronomy 28 is because, based upon Deuteronomy 28, verses 45 to 46, those curses and humiliation and enslavement and oppression and suppression, all of them show that those people who were subjected to that treatment are the chosen of God. So it's a sign and wonder. The scripture is Deuteronomy 28, verses 45 to 46. And no other group of people will fit that prophecy, particularly when we look at the prophecy that the Lord told Moses. Hey, Moses, you are descendants they will go into captivity again. They will go to Egypt again, and this time they will go by way of ships. And that prophecy is applicable only to one group of people, those whose ancestors were sent into captivity by the way of ships. And luckily, we have monuments, we have documents, we have oral history to support that, to support the history that there was a time that there was slave trade. Believe me, if the slave dungeons in Africa were destroyed, somebody would lie that there was never slave trade. It's very true. It's very true because there was a lady in the United States, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and a black lady, I would say an African American lady. She had a son, and the son went to school, and they were teaching the son that there was no slavery or slave trade in America. So the son came home and told the mom, "Mom, our teacher said slavery did not occur in America." Of course, there are relics of slavery and slave trade, and nobody can deny it. If there are books about slavery and slave trade, the books can be destroyed. You can have a billionaire who has a lot of money. You go to the publisher and pay the publisher and say, "This book is coming out. I don't want the book to come out. I want you to destroy the books." So it can be done. But when the history is entered into the minds of people, that history can never be destroyed. That is why it's important for you to pass on the awakening to your brothers and sisters and your children. Fortunately, there are relics of slavery and slave trade, and archaeological evidence, oral evidence, and historical evidence are very clear who the chosen of God are. Nonetheless, attempts have been made to distort the history about the chosen of God. And that is why there is a lot of confusion about who is the chosen of God. And there are so many methods of distortion, and we'll go over them one by one. And the first one is theology. And when we say theology, it is the way we look at the Bible and the scriptures. The theologians were not Christians. They were even people who didn't believe in the Bible. And so when you hear the word theology, it is philosophy about the Bible, it's somebody's philosophy about the Bible. And there were so many theologies that were used. The theology of the curse of Ham. The argument is that Ham was cursed, and Ham was a black person, and so all black people are cursed, and Ham was cursed so that his skin will be black. So anybody whose skin is black is cursed, and this is the curse of Ham theology that was used. It was used to support slave trade and slavery. It was used to support colonialism and imperialism. It is also used at this time to say that a Negro cannot be a chosen of God, because as a Negro, you are cursed. You are cursed physically and spiritually, eternally. Of course, you know that theology is false. And even if you look at Ham, it's very clear that there was no curse on Ham. So it is a wrong theology, and so many questions can be asked. If Ham was cursed, why is it that Ham made a lot of contribution in history and even progenitor of civilization? If Ham was cursed, why is the Bible talking um, so much about Ham and the descendants of Ham? If you go to the Table of Nations, Genesis chapter 10, verse 6, you see Ham, the descendants of Ham, principally talking about Cush and Ethiopia. And people are confused because those people who are talking about the curse of Ham, they cannot explain why, if Ham was cursed, why is it that Cush is mentioned 51 times in the Bible? If Mizraim, Egypt, was cursed, why is it that Egypt is mentioned 617 times in the Bible? It shows that Ham and his descendants made a great contribution in the Bible and also in world civilization. And so the confusion still goes on. And so they develop a strategy. This one is not theological, it is intellectual. The intellectual warfare is that we are going to say that Egypt was not black, Egypt was white. And as a result of that, the chosen of God cannot be black, they are all white. And that is intellectual. It is intellectual warfare. They fought the war for a long time to exclude black people from Egypt. Why would they do that? They would do that for several reasons. Number one, the civilization that occurred in Egypt was the greatest civilization that has ever come. Egypt's civilization resulted in advancement in medicine, arts, and culture, technological advances, mathematics, even philosophy itself. And it was the ancient Egyptians who were black who were responsible for that civilization. And so if you say that ancient Egypt was not black, you are trying to steal the history of ancient Egypt that was black. And the historians, including Herodotus himself, they all admit that ancient Egypt was black. It was black civilization. And still there's a worry, there's confusion, because they will go to Egypt. If they are American professors, if they are European professors, they will take students to Egypt and they will go and study the civilization in ancient Egypt. And they see the statues of the pharaohs and they see things that happened in Egypt. And it happened in Egypt when Europe was in darkness. And then they have to explain who were responsible. And they found it difficult to say that that civilization was the civilization of quote unquote Negroes. And so they had to whitewash everything in Egypt, in icons, in monuments, in documents. And according to one scholar, Banche Dakwa, he wrote a book, The Africans Who Wrote the Bible. He made mention of the fact that when the Greeks conquered Egypt, they stole so many things. And one of the things that they stole was that they fabricated the history of the king's list so that they would list Greek names in the Egyptian king's list. They would take away the names of black kings who ruled Egypt and they will put their own name there. Of course, you know that so many intellectual property from ancient Egypt was stolen by the Greeks. And you are aware that Socrates, who was recognized as the wisest person in the world, he never wrote a book. And you are also aware that the great and the greatest philosophers in Egypt, they all they were the teachers. They were the teachers of the Greek philosophers. In other words, the great Greek philosophers, most of them went to ancient Egypt to study, including Aristotle. And so there's an intellectual battle, and the battle is to exclude Egypt from Africa. And how would they do it? They would do it by saying that Egypt is not part of Africa. And so if you are studying African history, you are not studying Egyptian history. And if you are studying Egyptian history, you are not studying African history. And so they coined a term, Egyptology. Egyptology. Egyptology means the study of Egypt. And who can study Egypt? The person who can study Egypt is a white man. And it's okay if he comes from Europe. It is okay if he comes from Harvard University in America. It's okay if he's an Arab, because Arabs are classified as white people. But it is not okay if somebody who is from Black Africa or from the Caribbean or from anywhere in the Black community in United States, if they come to Egypt to study Egypt, they are not Egyptologists. It was a racist way of classifying who is an African historian and who is an Egyptian historian. And because they prevented mostly Africans and Black people from studying about Egypt or hiding information from them, because they did that, they succeeded in hiding so many things. They succeeded in spreading false information about Egypt, about civilization. They did it for centuries because they were in control of everything. They were in control of the printing press. They were the rulers of the nations, and they had the influence, and so they were able to control so many things. They monopolized the study of Egypt, and they did it until something happened in 1974, and that was a time when a gentleman from Senegal, Sheikh Anta Diop, he challenged them, and he said that civilization originated from Africa and originated from Egypt, and those who were responsible were Black people, and the pharaohs were black pharaohs. And they challenged him, so there was a conference, and that was organized in Egypt, 1974, and as a result of the conference, 18 scholars were humiliated by one Negro scholar by name Sheikh Anta Diop from Senegal. He has written a lot of books, and one of them is Civilization or Barbarism. It's a sarcastic title, but you are asking the question. He's asking the question. The civilization that occurred in Africa, was it not civilization? Why do you say Africans are barbaric? And so Egyptology, intellectual warfare, it was used to deny the African heritage of ancient Egypt, even though ancient Egypt was black. And if you deny the black man, black woman, the heritage in Egypt, then you can say that the chosen of God cannot be a black person. It cannot be the Negroes, because those people who were in Egypt, the Israelites, they were white. And they were white, and they were able to mix and mingle with the Egyptians because the ancient Egyptians were white. Of course, that is false intellectual writing. is fraudulent misrepresentation of historical facts. Historical records show that the Arabs came to Egypt in 638 AD after Christ, long after the Hebrew Israelites had left Egypt. Long after King Tahaka, the Nubian pharaoh, ruled Egypt. Of course, if you look at the Old Testament, the book of the prophet Isaiah is talking about a Nubian black king who was a pharaoh in Egypt. His name is Pharaoh Tahaka. And so let nobody deceive you that Egypt was white and there was no black kings and queens in Egypt. That is a lie. And so we are going to the issue about the choosing of God. Who is the choosing of God? And you know, information has been distorted. And the reason why there is so much confusion is that you see people who say they are Jews, they are the chosen of God. And if you go and read Revelation 2, verse 9, Revelation 3, verse 9, you see a warning there. Those who say they are Jews, they are not, they are the synagogue of Satan. That words are written in red in my Bible. It means that these are exact words coming from the mouth of Yeshua, warning you and I that in the last days there will be confusion about who are the chosen of God, because there will be people who will call themselves JUWS. They are not. They are of the synagogue of Satan. And at the time of making this video, the confusion is still going on. And it's going on because there are people who identify as Jews, and they are saying that the claim of those who say they are Jews, and that the claim is false. And I'm confused. I'm confused because those who are claiming the Jews are not the chosen of God, based upon history, based upon records, and based upon the Bible, a lot of them are themselves Jews. So I recommend several works that have been done in the field. One of them is the 13th Tribe, a book written by Arthur Koestler, 13th Tribe. Of course, the conclusion is that those who say they are Jews, they are not. They are part of the Khazar Empire. Then another book, Facts Are Facts. Facts Are Facts, written by Benjamin Friedman. He also claims he's a Jew. And he's saying that those who claim they are Jews, they are not. They are converts. They are converts from the Khazar Empire. Principally, they are what we call Ashkenazi Jews. And so that's the confusion. There's still confusion about the issue of who are the chosen of God. I believe that the confusion is as a result of identity theft, because people cannot claim to be what they are not. Identity theft benefits those who benefit from the theft. And there's a warning in Revelation 3, verse 9. It is a blasphemy. It's a warning in Revelation 2, verse 9. It's a blasphemy. It is also a warning in Isaiah 50, verse 20. Woe to those who say good is bad and bad is good. Light is darkness and darkness is light. Sweet is bitter and bitter is sweet. And so for those who lie about who they are, you'd have to remember that Revelation 22:15 is very clear. Revelation 22:8 is very clear. Those who lie will not enter the kingdom of heaven. And so this is where we are. There are people who say they are the chosen of God, and they are not. they don't fit into the prophecy regarding who is the chosen of God. They don't fit because they don't fit in Deuteronomy 28. They don't fit because recently it has been found that even DNA has exposed the myth, has exposed the lies. Those who claim they are Jews, they are not. They have been exposed by DNA findings. That's why now you cannot do DNA in Israel. It's forbidden because it has opened so many secrets, cobwebs in the closet have been exposed. And so they don't want you to do DNA in Israel. Why? It's because they know that it's a disaster. And so the confusion still continues. Who is the chosen of God? And my advice to you is that you need to be God centered. It is not enough to be called the chosen of God, because the scripture is very clear. Many are called, but few will be chosen. The scripture is also very clear. It is not those who say, Lord, Lord, who enter the kingdom of heaven. It is those who do the will of the Father who art in heaven. And the Messiah was also very emphatic that it is not all those who say they are seed of Abraham who are the seed of Abraham, because some of them will depart from the flock. They will get out of the flock and they will be devoured by wolves. There are a lot of wolves who are mixing and mingling with the chosen of God, and they are miseducating them. Miseducation of the Hebrew, miseducation of the Negro. And you need to stay firm, be God centered, obey the commandment. If you are the chosen of God, you stand on the promises of God. The Lord will gather his people, the chosen ones. He will gather them. He will gather them from all the four corners of the earth. It is stated in Isaiah 11:11. It's stated in the writings of Matthew. And the Lord, when he comes, will send his angels to all the four corners of the earth and to gather his people. He knows them by name. He can count their hair, the number of hair that they have on their heads, and nobody can deceive the Lord. He's not a man who can deceive, and he's not a man who can be deceived. So the chosen of God, you know who you are, and you pray that the Lord will redeem you. You see his glory. The final trumpet of heaven has come, and let no one deceive you, the chosen of God. There's no confusion, because if you are chosen of God, you know that you are, and you should know that you are, and don't panic. The panic comes in when somebody who has used lies for centuries is now being exposed. And when he's exposed, he becomes very jittery. He panics because the lies have been exposed. And that's why so many people are uncomfortable when other people are saying they are the chosen of God, they are Hebrew Israelites. They are panicking because their time is up. The Messiah is coming. The lies will be exposed, and they will see the outcasts of Israel and the dispersed of Judah being carried on the shoulders of Elohim to the land that is promised to them. And at that time, there will be divine eviction, and the prophecy in Revelation 2:9 and 3:9 will come in. And those who blasphemously say they are the chosen of God, the Messiah will meet them, and judgment will come. Judgment will come to Edom. Judgment will come to the house of Esau. Judgment will come to the heathen. Judgment will come to those who enslaved and captured the children of Jacob, because the Lord has said that he will visit his people, and then he will judge the nations that afflicted them. It is stated in Genesis chapter 15, reading from verses 13 to 14. My email is raptureafrica@yahoo.com. I'm leaving it in the description box, one word, one letter. Thank you. The chosen of God. There's a lot of confusion, and there's confusion in the camp, even among the Jews, because you have Jews who are saying that the Jews are not the Jews, they are Khazarians, they are of Ashkenazi stock, they are not. And you see people who are fighting, and monuments will fight for you, historical records will fight for you, archaeological records will fight for you, and the Bible text is fighting for you, because it is confirmed from the Bible to Timbuktu who the Hebrew Israelites are. It is confirmed from the Bible to Timbuktu. Thank you for watching this video.